There's something unusual about the exact second you press play on this video. You're not here because you were bored. You're here because you needed to recognize something inside yourself. Lately, you've been sensing a shift, a feeling sitting just beneath your awareness, like a word on the tip of your tongue that refuses to reveal itself. You know the direction your life is pulling you toward. You can visualize it sharply, almost like déjà vu of a future you haven't physically entered yet. But you're not standing in it. Not today. Not yet. And that distance, that invisible stretch between the now and the not yet, it's getting heavier. Some mornings you rise buzzing with certainty. The world feels coded in your favor. You convince yourself you're one sunrise away from everything finally snapping into place. But then there are mornings when your body feels like sandbags. Your motivation evaporates, and even the smallest task feels like pushing a boulder uphill for no audience and no reward. And a question is creeping in. What if this works for everyone but me? What if I'm the one anomaly in the system? What if this is just my life on loop? But listen closely. This video didn't land in your feed at random. It reached you because you're standing in the most critical chapter of your evolution. The chapter nobody frames beautifully. The chapter that isn't celebrated, posted, or congratulated. The chapter that silently divides those who become from those who almost became. You are in the in-between. And this message only finds people who are living in that narrow, confusing corridor between the life they currently occupy and the life they are preparing to embody. Once you exit this phase, once you finally cross into the version of life you keep imagining, you won't need reminders like this, because you will be the reminder. So let's break down what's actually happening to you. Right now, you're living in a dual existence. One reality is visible. You're still constructing yourself, still learning, still refining, still wrestling with resistance, waiting for momentum to prove itself, still feeling like the universe is testing your stamina more than rewarding your effort. The other reality is invisible but powerful. You can feel the future you. You can sense the version of you who already possesses the very things you are working to earn. The one who walks into rooms without shrinking. The one who moves without self-doubt, narrating every footstep. The one who exists without needing proof every 5 minutes that growth is happening. That version is real. You know it. But the space between the two, that gap is where the tension lives. That's why some days you move like you've already arrived, and other days you collapse under the weight of a present self that feels too far away from its upgrade. And here's the twist. That emotional swing isn't a malfunction. It's evidence of transformation. Growth isn't a straight staircase upward. It's a storm, a spiral, a contraction and expansion, a constant recalibration. It's moving forward boldly, then retreating into self-questioning, then surging again, then plateauing, then doubting the surge ever even happened, then finding a deeper surge later. Your mind is trying to decode the timing, but breakthroughs aren't decoded. They're earned by showing up without guarantees. Preparation doesn't look like inspiration. It looks like discipline on days when belief is flickering. It looks like action when confidence is missing. It looks like choosing long-term truth over short-term comfort. And even if you haven't paused to acknowledge it, you've been doing that. Maybe you haven't tracked the growth because you were busy tracking the distance left to close. Maybe you've been so zoomed in on what hasn't happened yet that you missed the fact that you're still trying, which is proof that you already crossed the point where giving up was easier. Now let's talk about that inner voice that shows up when the days feel heavy. The voice that asks, is this worth it? Is this even real? Am I chasing something impossible? It sounds like fear, but it's actually commitment checking itself. Because if this was just a passing dream, a temporary fantasy, a trend you tried on for a season, you would have abandoned it long ago. You would have found a distraction, invented a new identity, or convinced yourself the goal never mattered anyway. But you're still here, still leaning toward the future, still asking, when will it happen? Instead of, should it happen at all? That question is faith wearing a disguise. Imperfect faith, nervous faith, impatient faith, trembling at the knees faith. but faith nonetheless. Because you don't keep asking for arrival dates on a destination you don't believe exists. And here's the secret about every person you admire, who's already on the other side of this phase. They lived here too. They felt this too. They questioned themselves too. They assumed they were the exception too. They feared they missed their moment too. But they didn't let doubt steer the ship. They let action override the doubt. They kept walking even when they couldn't confirm the clearing was near. That's the only difference between you and them. They survived the in-between long enough to exit it, and you are currently surviving it long enough to exit it too. Now, because I know you're tired of poetic motivation without practical handles, let me give you something real. Stop measuring progress by emotion. Emotion is weather, not direction. Instead, measure progress by behavior. Did you wake up today and refuse to quit? That counts. Did you take one imperfect step instead of waiting for 10 perfect ones? That counts. Did you do the thing even when it felt like nothing was happening? That counts. Because the in-between isn't measured in celebrations. It's measured in repetitions. It's measured in resilience. It's measured in the quiet choices that look small but are actually massive. Let me tell you the metaphor that reframed everything for me. Imagine you are stranded in a forest. No map, no signal, no instructions, no guide. Just trees, confusion, cold nights, trial and error, and a choice: move or freeze. Freezing feels safe at first, but freezing in a forest is just dying slowly. So you walk, you gamble on a direction, and maybe it takes you deeper into the trees. Maybe you panic, maybe you think you made a mistake, but every wrong direction teaches you one route that isn't the way out. Every failed attempt becomes data. Every wrong path eventually becomes wisdom if you don't let it become identity. And one day, through movement alone, you reach the clearing. You step out of the density and suddenly see sky again. And you realize the forest wasn't trapping you. It was shaping you. It was strengthening you. It was preparing a version of you who could navigate without collapsing into fear. That's what this phase is doing for you. And here's the part most people misunderstand. The in-between is not the road before success. It is the road that is success in its least glamorous form. Once you arrive, uncertainty won't end. It will evolve. New heights bring new tests, new versions of in-between, new thresholds that feel impossible until you cross them. Success doesn't erase confusion. It just promotes you to a higher level version of it. So if you wait to feel victorious before honoring the process, you'll spend your entire life waiting. This phase is the forge where you become someone capable of holding what you keep asking for. And here's the confirmation you've been silently craving. You're still here, still leaning forward, still receptive, still moving even when the world can't measure it yet. That is the sign. So do this with me. Go to the comments and write, "I'm still searching." No paragraph, no story, no proof, no defense, just a statement of motion. Because motion is identity now. And if you know someone who feels trapped in their own version of this passage, someone silently battling the belief that they may never reach the life they can almost taste, someone exhausted from carrying emotional weight they never consciously chose, share this message with them. Invite them to speak their own declaration. Encourage them to see themselves moving, even if the movement is invisible to the world right now. Because healing is never truly a solo occurrence. It feels personal, yes. It feels like a closed-door battle, yes. But it becomes real the moment it is voiced. It becomes unstoppable the moment it is witnessed. And it becomes transformational the moment it is shared with others who understand the terrain without needing it explained. Most people believe healing happens in the mind first, that once the mind agrees, the life changes. But the truth is the reverse. Healing becomes solid not when it is understood, but when it is claimed, when it is spoken without apology, when it is repeated without needing evidence, when it is lived even when doubt narrates every step like an overprotective backseat driver. You are not here to silence doubt. You are here to recognize that doubt is no longer the authority. You are not here to banish fear. You are here to learn that fear is no longer the decision maker. You are not here to rush the in-between. You are here to graduate from it by walking through it instead of defending yourself inside it. So keep walking, keep showing up, keep trusting that the road unveils itself only to those who refuse to freeze inside the argument of their own thoughts. You are not off track. You are being reshaped. You are not behind. You are being recalibrated. You are not failing. You are undergoing the unglamorous physics of becoming someone who can hold what you once thought you needed permission to reach. The exhaustion you feel, it isn't evidence that you can't make it. It is evidence that you're leaving an old internal atmosphere and entering a new one. It is the pressure difference between two versions of you. It is the gravitational pull of identity, shifting from the thinker to the witness. It is the friction created when the old self resists dissolving and the new self hasn't fully taken physical shape yet. You are not meant to interpret the friction as a dead end. You are meant to interpret it as momentum. And here's what makes this moment sacred. Most people run from this stage. They mistake discomfort for a wrong turn. They interpret the heaviness of shedding as the heaviness of stagnation. They think if it doesn't feel smooth, it isn't right. So they abandon the very process that was quietly forging them into someone stronger, wiser, lighter, and more awake. But you stayed, not because it was easy, but because something inside you knew the alternative was slower death. Not physical death, spiritual shrinking, emotional calcification, the slow tragedy of staying mentally alive, but existentially asleep. You didn't choose healing because it felt safe. You chose it because it felt true. And truth doesn't ask for comfort before it proves itself. Truth just asks for motion, consistency, return. You keep returning to the path not because you always believe, but because a deeper part of you recognizes that the belief isn't what saves you. The returning is. Walking is identity now. Showing up is identity now. Choosing awareness over the tyranny of mental commentary is identity now. Not because you have perfect clarity, but because you finally recognize that clarity comes after motion, not before it. The gap is shrinking, not because the universe finally liked your resume, but because you expanded your inner capacity to hold the upgrade. Not because someone validated your timeline, but because you stopped outsourcing your worth to voices that were never designed to define it. Not because external alignment rescued you, but because internal alignment rewrote you. And you are living inside that rewrite right now. You are in the corridor where the old identity dissolves and the new one takes form, where the mental voice keeps speaking, but no longer governs, where you still have questions, but no longer negotiate your peace, where you still feel the weight, but recognize it as transformation, not disqualification. So honor this stage, respect it, walk through it without resentment. One day you will look back and realize this was the moment you were being promoted from surviving yourself to discovering yourself, from believing the noise to embodying the silence beneath it. The world isn't waiting for you to be perfect. It's waiting for you to be undeniably committed to your own evolution. And by still being here, by still moving, by still leaning toward the deeper recognition instead of the louder fear, you have already proven. You were never the exception. You were the process. You were the journey. You were the one walking long before you believed you could arrive. And that means the clearing, the fusion, the breakthrough, the version of you who no longer feels like they are becoming, but simply is closer than you've ever been. Not because time passed, but because you did. Keep walking, keep arriving in the moment, keep recognizing that you are the space, not the noise. Because the clearing isn't a place you reach someday. It is a place you enter because you never stopped moving toward it.